We want to ask you, how have you been growing your ability to expand your thinking over the years?
Because I think, as I said earlier, don't be uncomfortable being naive. So be around people who are or have expertise, who are interesting, who will share with you and will challenge you. I love being challenged. Not by everybody. I don't need to challenge my wife. I don't need to show her that I know something she doesn't know unless she's really making a big mistake. But, have those friends, have those colleagues who can really challenge you.
So, Karen, how have you been growing your own ability to think over the years? I want to ask that question.
My best thinking comes through writing. I think as an introvert, that processing and then having a chance to sit down with a keyboard crystallizes thoughts in ways differently. There are certainly things that happen when I'm with a group and I'm working with them and people ask questions and then magic happens and I'll hear myself say something and then I want to run and write it down really quick so I can think about it. But most often it starts on the page and it's thinking through questions I've been getting or things that I see that people are grappling with. So this idea of people over rotating is a piece I've been working on for a while that I want to be able to bring forward and offer suggestions. And so that internalization is where I think I crystallize thinking. And then part of my job is keynotes and connecting with people. And so then I have to think about how do you take what's on the page and share it live, which is different. But a big piece of my time goes to having that ability to sit down and reflect and then put the time on the page to see what I can bring forward.
Beautiful. How have you been growing your ability to think over the years?
One of the things that helps me is that I live quite remotely in Scotland. So I live out in the countryside, so I can make space to think. I have 3 dogs, so I walk with my dogs. And what I do when I walk with my dogs is I think. And I think about constructive things. So here is a question. How do we solve our problems in life? And the answer is by asking constructive questions.
How have you been growing your ability to think over the years?
So I use that expression a lot. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I read lots of books. As you know, I had a podcast for about 8 years, so interviewed a lot of people. I journal frequently. I pray. So I look to make meaning of the experience that I'm having. So I'm continually looking at all of the inputs that I'm getting and processing them. And I'm also doing things like therapy. So that help me understand, are there things that I'm thinking or believing that aren't necessarily true? And how do I reprogram my brain, which I think is an important, I just said I think, is an important piece of this. So it's just a process. And it's interesting to say this idea of I think is really another way of saying I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm figuring things out.
Beautiful.
Well, it seems to me that a lot of learning and emotional intelligence is what's called osmotic. It's because you're a model and people absorb it. Kids absorb it. Kids look to adults for how to behave. So you're teaching lessons for better or for worse in emotional intelligence all the time you're with a kid. And the more time you spend together, the better, if the lessons are good ones.
Wow. I have two last questions for these conversations. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
And one question is about thinking, because Vivian and I, we've been on the quest to help people to improve their ability to think also, because we see there's so many noises these days that are affecting our ability to think. So the question for you, Daniel, is how have you been growing your ability to think?
I try to resist my phone. Our phones are our best friends and our worst enemies for thinking. The reason being, there's a direct relationship between how emotionally unregulated you are and poor thinking, or being calm and clear, managing your upsetting emotions. That helps you think the most clearly. And our phones have all of our distractions. Everything that you like to see, everything you like to hear is there in your phone in an instant. So being able to resist, to not pick up that phone and look at all the things that distract you, but keep your mind and your focus on the task at hand, I think that's the most important thing for thinking well.
I think for me, it is about staying curious and continuing to seek out new ideas, new information. And that has been by reading, that has been through podcasts, YouTube. There's so many incredible sources now where when I first moved to Zambia, I thought, I'm in this tiny little country in the middle of Africa. I have access to nothing. That's not true anymore. I have access to the whole world because of the internet and shows like yours and so on. I think for me, it's curiosity, and it's a curiosity about who I am as well, and wanting to delve deeper and peel off more layers of that onion, and then of course use that information to help others. So to continue to help myself think, it's about being curious, about questioning things and learning more, broadening my own perspective, realizing that if I only know this, I'm in my little box here. The more I know, the more I expose myself, the more the wider my perception can be.
So Lisa, how have you been growing your own ability to think over the years?
I spend more time thinking, and I don't mean that in a trite way. I really try to take the time to process information in a quiet place. I have to, and that quiet place may be me blocking everything out around me. You know where I think the best? Driving my car. That's where I think the best. If I'm on a long drive and I'm by myself, I am driving, but my brain is it's like a Rubik's Cube, right? I'm just processing information. I require blocking out all the distractions and having time every single day to think.
Wow, beautiful. I have the last question, and I hope it's not emotionally for you, but if I can bring you back to a beautiful moment, whatever that moment in time that you had with your father, okay? And you tell him about the wisdom that you've been accumulated through life. You tell him about the stories of Lisa Gable having in the future. So, and you can tell him anything about that. What would you tell him at that moment?
Oh, I'd tell him that he was right about so many things. I would tell him that he was right about things not mattering as much as I thought they did. I think that's the one thing that my father taught me, right? He taught me to let things go. And he taught me that in the greater scheme of life, that activity, that situation that caused me to be upset, it's minuscule in the greater scheme of life. It doesn't really matter.
So Joey, you have a very unique way of thinking. So tell us, how have you been growing your ability to think?
Oh, I appreciate the compliment. I would say something, I do a couple of things. Number one, I try to have a variety of inputs to my thought. I try to read things that maybe other people aren't reading. I try to listen to experts who have studied a subject to glean what they have learned. I try to listen and read people who I don't agree with. You know, living in the United States in this era, it's become a very fractioned society. You either believe what I believe or you're an idiot. You believe what I believe or else you're the enemy. That's a mistake. It's a horrible mistake. I think we need to understand perspectives that aren't our own. I think that will help us grow and shape our thinking. The other thing that I do is, and I'm getting better at this, I'm not done, but I'm making some improvements on it. We need to take time not to do and instead to think. So many of us are busy reacting to our environment. I have text messages to respond to. I have phone calls to return. I have emails to read. I have emails to return. I have social media messages to read. I have social media messages to return. We have so many apps and tools and communication devices that are saying, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, talk to me, respond to me. When do you step away from all of it? When do you turn off your phone? Most people in this day and age, if I said I want you to turn off your phone for 3 days, would tell me I'm crazy. And yet, when I was growing up, and it sounds like when you were growing up, we didn't even have phones. And now we think that the phone is so important that it needs to be there and on all day, every day. Most people never even turn their cell phone off. They just put it on airplane mode or plug it back in to keep it charging. What would happen if you just turned it off? You would actually have time to think. You would actually have time for your brain to stop reacting and start creating and start wondering and start being curious and start exploring. If you don't carve out the time on your schedule to think and grow and learn in a non-reactive way, no one else will carve that time out for you. You have to take ownership of that yourself.
Wow.